All right, so that was my playthrough, and now I'd just like to share some impressions, not quite a review, but just some of my thoughts after playing and doing a playthrough of Ruins Death Binder. So here's one of the things I like about this game. It's soloable, of course, but it also has a co-op two-player mode. So there's a little bit of flexibility there as opposed to a pure solo mode, although I appreciate the fact that it does have a pure solo mode in the box, and that's kind of the default way to play it. So it's kind of a reversal, right, where usually you'll have the multiplayer game and then at the end of the process they'll tack on a solo mode. In this game it's developed as a native solo game, and then later on in the process a two-player cooperative mode was kind of developed to go along with it. I wouldn't say it's tacked on, although I haven't tried it myself personally, but I have read the rules, and I think that it's it's a pretty good experience for two players as well. The next thing I like about it is that it is a small box game. So here on the table, it doesn't really take a lot of table space because it's abstracted, right? Like it doesn't use tiles to represent the actual dungeon that you are kind of delving into. It uses the map, and then it uses tokens on the map. And that leads into my next point, which is that system allows for a lot of variability in that path. And also, the fact that the map is in 3 columns, basically, with some branching paths, means that there are choices for you. You're not kind of locked into, oh, I can only do this one thing for my next step. There's always going to be different choices, and the choices are of varying degrees of difficulty. And you can also kind of customize, like if you're saying to yourself, I need to rest, I'm low on health points. Well, you can take a look and see which one of my basically 3 options do I have that will give me that opportunity to rest. So there is agency that is placed in the hands of the player by virtue of the game design. So that's another nice thing about it. A small box with the choices to make as to your next step, and kind of promoting player agency, that idea. Springing off from the idea of player agency, I also like the fact that the combat is completely diceless, right? So if you're not a fan of randomness, if you're a fan of very kind of like deterministic combat, this game has that in spades, right? And really, because of that, like the lack of randomness, it allows you to really plan what your next move is. Now, the randomness does spring from the action cards that come out that you draw at the start of every combat round, right? That is something that initially there's going to be a higher degree of randomness there, but as the game goes on, as you choose cards to store and choose cards to kind of remove from the game, you also remove the randomness from your draw deck, your action deck, and are basically just honing and pruning the cards that you really want to keep, that you find useful. So there's a lot of thoughtful touches in the game design that I find that at every point kind of really thought was placed on how do we maximize player choice and how do we minimize randomness. And when randomness is used, it's used purposefully. Kind of not like, oh, we'll just throw in some dice there and then see how that, changes the design. The other nice thing, the last point I'll make about what I like about the game is the very unique, in my experience, the kind of like reverse deck building or the deck leaking mechanic, right? And I've already touched on this, where you start out with all the action cards. And that's a double-edged sword, because the good cards are in there, but they're all kind of like mixed in with the not so useful cards for what you want to be able to do. And initially, you're only able to store, at the lower levels, you're only able to store 1 card per turn, or at the end of every combat round, right? Or at the start of every new combat round. But as you go on and you go up in level, you can choose to increase the number of cards that you are able to store. So if you find that, you played a couple of cards in the last combat round and they were very useful, then you could store more if you had gone up in experience points and be able to spend those experience points for that thing, right? So this idea of reverse deck building is something that I've not seen, and I'm a huge fan of deck builders, but deck builders kind of fall into that trap, right? Where it's like you start out with the low-level cards, the starter cards that don't really allow you to do much, and then you have to purchase upgraded cards as the game goes on, and then you are slowly build up your character. In this one, your character has too much cards, too many rather, and then you have to kind of work to refine your character and get rid of the dead wood, so to speak, from your deck. So I find that that's kind of like an interesting reversal on the idea of deck building. So, Ruins Deathbinder, a 1 to 2 player game from the publisher and designer Heavy Punch Games. It's coming to Kickstarter very soon. Small box, low randomness, high strategy, small footprint. So if you like those things that I mentioned, then I think you should definitely check out this game. So this has been Martin. I don't think I played this wrong this time around. I think I played it pretty well, but this has been my channel. Until the next time I probably play something wrong. Thanks for watching.